Do you want to speak English fluently without feeling bored or confused? Let me tell you something powerful. When you listen to real stories like this one, your brain learns grammar, vocabulary, and sentence structure naturally without you even trying. This is the magic of stories. You enjoy the adventure, and the English just enters your brain like music. We have new videos every single day, so hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you never miss a story. Let's start learning English the fun way. Luca lived in a small town near Rome. Every morning, he walked to the same cafe on the corner of Via Milano. The cafe was small, quiet, and smelled like fresh bread and coffee beans. The chairs outside were always cold in the morning, but Luca liked that. It helped him wake up. He always ordered the same thing, one hot espresso, no sugar, and a small glass of water. He never liked sweet things early in the day. The man at the counter, Marco, knew his order by heart. One hot espresso, right, Luca? Always hot, never cold. Luca laughed every time Marco said it. It was their little morning joke. But one Tuesday morning something felt different. The sky was cloudy. The street was quiet more than usual. And when Luca entered the cafe, there was someone new sitting at the back. A woman. Alone. She was writing in a notebook with a red pen. She looked up when Luca entered. Just for a second. Her eyes were sharp, like she was always watching, always thinking. Then she went back to her writing. Marco handed Luca his espresso. She's not from here, Marco whispered. Came in yesterday. Orders hot American coffee, not espresso. Strange, huh? Luca took a sip of his espresso and looked again at the woman. Her coffee cup was larger than his. The steam was rising slowly. She wasn't drinking it. Just watching it. Like she was waiting for something. Luca sat at his usual table by the window. He tried to read the newspaper, but his eyes kept moving back to the woman. Finally, he stood up and walked to her table. Mind if I sit here? She looked up, surprised, then nodded. Sure. It's your cafe, I guess. Not really. But I come here a lot. Name's Luca. Sophie, she said. I'm from Canada. Ah, that explains the big coffee. She smiled. A real smile, not a polite one. That surprised Luca. They sat in silence for a minute. Sophie kept writing, but slower now. What are you writing about? Luca was curious now. People. Places. Smells. I write what I feel. It helps me understand things better. Understand what? The world. Myself. Life in Italy. Coffee culture. Luca leaned forward, interested. You know, in Italy, coffee is not just a drink. It's a ritual. A moment. You never drink coffee in a rush. You take your time. You stand at the bar. You talk. You live. Sophie looked at him, her eyes serious now. That's why I'm here? To feel that. To stop rushing. Luca smiled. Then you chose the right cafe. Just then an old man entered the cafe. His coat was wet from the light rain. He waved at Marco and sat down. Marco brought him a cappuccino, even though it was already late in the morning. In Italy, cappuccinos are for mornings only, but nobody said anything. The old man looked tired. That's Signore Bianchi, Luca said quietly. Lost his wife last year. He still comes every day. Same time, same table. Sophie nodded, watching the man. Every cafe has stories like this, doesn't it? Luca agreed. But you have to look to see them. She wrote something in her notebook again. Can I ask you something? Why do Italians never take their coffee to go? Because that would kill the moment. You don't take a sunset home in a box. You sit and watch it. Same with coffee. Sophie smiled again, but this time her eyes were soft. I think I needed to hear that today. The rain outside got stronger. Drops hit the windows like small drums. People ran with umbrellas. But inside the cafe, it was warm and calm. Marco turned on the radio. A soft Italian song played. Someone laughed. Sophie's coffee was now half full. She finally took a sip. It was cold, but she didn't care. So, how long are you in Italy? Luca asked. Not sure. A few weeks. Maybe more. I'm just following the road. Looking for something. Sophie nodded slowly. Or maybe trying to forget something. They sat in silence again, but it wasn't awkward. It felt natural. Like the cafe wanted them to stop talking for a moment and just be there. The door opened again. A young couple entered, speaking in German. Tourists. They looked confused by the menu. Marco helped them with a smile. Sophie watched closely, then wrote something down. You write fast. Only when something feels real. And today feels real. More than yesterday. Luca looked outside. The rain had stopped. The street was wet and shiny. A delivery bike passed by. Somewhere a bell rang. I should go, Sophie said. But I'll come again tomorrow. Same time? Luca asked. Probably. I like the coffee here. And the people. She stood up, smiled, and walked to the door. Luca stayed seated watching her leave. Marco came over. She's different, huh? Yeah. But in a good way. The cafe was quiet again. Luca finished his espresso, cold now, but still perfect. He looked out the window and thought about Sophie. About coffee. About how small moments can suddenly feel big. He didn't know it yet, but his mornings were about to change forever. Did you feel that? You just learned tons of English without even trying. You saw real conversation. Natural grammar. Useful expressions like mind if I sit here, you have to look to see, and it wasn't awkward, all inside a fun, emotional story. That's the power of story-based learning. And guess what? We post new videos every day. So like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell so you don't miss part 2 of Luca and Sophie's journey. Now it's your turn. Write a comment. What would you say to Sophie if you were in that cafe? I read every single comment. Sophie returned the next day. Same cafe. Same time. Same red pen in her hand. Luca was already sitting at his usual table waiting. This time, he had 2 coffees on the table, 1 espresso and 1 large American coffee, extra hot. You remembered. Sophie said as she sat down. Hard to forget a person who orders giant coffee in Italy. Luca smiled. Sophie took the cup, wrapped her hands around it, and waited. She didn't drink it right away. You don't like it hot? No. I like holding it. The warmth. It makes me feel calm. They sat quietly for a few moments. Around them, the cafe slowly filled with people. 2 workers in suits came in, speaking quickly. A young mother entered with a little boy who wanted a pastry more than anything else in the world. Marco gave him one for free. The little boy said grazie with a mouth full of cream. You were right yesterday, Sophie said. There are so many small stories in here. You just have to listen. Luca said. Sophie looked around again. There was something different in her eyes today. She seemed softer, slower, more present. Do you always come alone? She asked. Yes. I like mornings alone. But it's different now. Different good or different bad? Different curious. She smiled and pulled out her notebook. I want to write about the silence here. What do you mean? It's not empty. It's full. Even when nobody talks, it feels like something is happening. Like the chairs and tables have memories. Luca nodded. He liked how Sophie saw things. It reminded him of his grandfather, who used to say that walls remember everything. Do you write for work? Luca asked. Sometimes. But mostly for myself. It's like talking to someone without using your voice. That's how I feel about coffee. Sophie raised an eyebrow. Explain. Luca leaned forward. Coffee is not just a drink here. It's how we say hello. How we end arguments. How we celebrate. When someone passes away, we drink coffee in silence. When someone falls in love, we meet for coffee. It's part of everything. Sophie took a slow sip and looked down at her notebook. She wasn't writing now. Just holding the pen. I think I missed that part of life. Which part? The slow part. The part where you notice things. Luca didn't say anything. He just looked at her and nodded. A man walked in with a large white box. He handed it to Marco, who opened it carefully. Inside were 10 small cakes. Marco placed one on a plate and brought it to the table. For you too. On the house. Why? Luca asked. Because you two are changing the energy in here. Marco said with a grin. Sophie looked surprised. Do we look like a couple? No. But you act like people who listen to each other. That's rare these days. They both laughed. But something about Marco's words stayed with them. Sophie tasted the cake. Light, sweet, soft. She closed her eyes for a second. This cafe is dangerous. Why? Because it makes you want to stay forever. That's not a bad thing. No, it's not. Outside, a bus passed by. A student rushed by with a backpack. A cat crossed the street like it owned the world. Luca looked out the window, then back at Sophie. What brought you to Italy, really? Sophie looked down. Her fingers touched the cup gently. Her voice was low now. My mother passed away last year. She always wanted to come to Italy. She talked about it for years but never made it. So I decided to come for both of us. Luca was silent. I'm sorry. It's okay. I think she would have loved this place. She would have ordered cappuccino. Sophie smiled. No. She drank tea. English breakfast, every single morning. But she loved stories. She would have sat here with her notebook, just like I do. So maybe she is here. Luca said gently. Sophie didn't answer. She looked out the window. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but she didn't hide it. Marco came by again, placed 2 glasses of water on the table, and walked away without a word. That's another Italian thing. Luca said. We give space, not advice. It's nice. Sophie wiped her cheek, took a deep breath and smiled. Thank you for not changing the subject. Some things deserve to be felt. Luca answered. Sophie wrote one word in her notebook, felt. She circled it 3 times. So what do you do? She asked. When you're not drinking espresso. I fix bicycles. There's a shop down the street. Really? That's amazing. It's peaceful work. No loud machines. Just hands and wheels. You're like a poet with tools. Luca laughed. No one has ever called me that before. They both laughed now. A loud, real laugh. People looked over and smiled without knowing why. Suddenly Sophie stood up. Come on. Where? Your bike shop. I want to see it. Luca was surprised, but he didn't say no. He grabbed his coat, left some coins on the table, and they walked out into the street together. The air was fresh after the rain. The ground was still wet, but the sky was clear. A bird flew above them. This way, Luca said. Sophie walked beside him, her notebook now in her bag. Her hands were empty and her steps were light. You really came to the shop? Luca said after a moment. I came to Italy. Might as well see everything. The shop was small but neat. Tools hung on the wall like art. A radio played old Italian music. A half-repaired red bicycle stood in the center. This is beautiful, Sophie whispered. It's just a workshop. No. It's more than that. It's a place that fixes things. Sometimes people bring bikes just for a talk. Luca said. They pretend something is broken, but really they just need someone to listen. Do you fix people too? Only if they come with wheels. They both laughed again. Sophie sat on a small stool. She watched as Luca cleaned the gears of a bike with care. Can I try? He handed her a tool and showed her what to do. Her hands got dirty quickly, but she didn't care. She looked happy. Focused. By the end of the hour, her fingers were black with oil and her face was glowing. I haven't felt this calm in months, she said quietly. Luca looked at her. That's what slowing down does. And that's what Italy does. Once again, you just learned English by feeling it. Not by studying it. You heard real emotions. Real people. And deep conversations, all in simple but powerful language. That's how English becomes part of you. So make sure you like the video, subscribe, and turn on that bell. Because tomorrow we continue with part 3, and trust me, things are about to get even more interesting. Now tell me in the comments. What's your favorite place to sit, think, or just slow down? I want to read your answers. The next morning, Sophie walked into the cafe with a small package in her hand. Luca was already there, reading the paper with his espresso in front of him. She placed the package on the table in front of him and sat down. What's this? Open it. Inside was a small notebook. Brown cover. Blank pages. On the first page, Sophie had written one sentence. Every story starts with a sip. Luca smiled, closed the notebook, and looked at her. This is really kind. It's not kind. It's a challenge. You're always talking about stories in this cafe. Now it's time to write one. Luca held the notebook carefully. He wasn't the writing type, but the gift touched something inside him. You want me to write? Just one thing a day. Something you see. Something you feel. Doesn't have to be beautiful. Just honest. He nodded, still looking at the notebook like it might break if he breathed too hard. Thank you. You're welcome. It's what friends do. That word, friends, stayed in the air a little longer than usual. Marco brought their coffees without asking. He even gave them a slice of fresh lemon cake this time. Sophie took a sip and leaned back in her chair. So, Mr. Bike Fixer, what's your dream? Luca blinked. My dream? Yeah. If you could wake up tomorrow and be anywhere, doing anything, what would it be? He thought for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe have my own small cafe? But one with bikes. People drink coffee, read books, fix their old bikes. A place where time moves slow. That's a beautiful dream. Why don't you do it? Money. Fear. Life. You know, the usual stuff. She nodded. Yeah. I know. What about you? What's your dream? To feel like I belong somewhere. Even just for a little while. You don't feel that? Not yet. But this cafe comes close. They sat in silence again. But it was a strong silence. The kind that grows something between people. Outside, a group of teenagers walked by laughing loudly. One of them waved at Marco through the window. He waved back without missing a beat while making 2 espressos at once. Luca opened the notebook and wrote something. Just one line. The coffee is hot, but the stories are warmer. Sophie saw it but said nothing. She smiled. You're a poet and you don't know it. Please don't start rhyming. Too late. They laughed again. Suddenly Sophie's phone rang. She looked at the screen and her face changed. Everything okay? Luca asked. Yeah. She turned the phone over so the screen was facing down. Just a friend from back home. I'll call her later. He didn't push. You don't seem like a person who runs from things. I'm not. But sometimes you just need one more day before facing something. That one more day becomes a month. Luca said softly. I know. That's why I'm trying to stop that from happening. The air around them felt heavier, but not in a bad way. Like something real was happening. They finished their coffee slowly. Sophie stood up. I want to walk today. Can I join? She paused. Sure. They left the cafe and turned left, walking past fruit stalls and flower shops. The smell of oranges mixed with roses in the warm air. How long have you lived here? Sophie asked. All my life. Never wanted to leave. Not even to travel. I like deep roots, not wide wings. You? I want both. Roots and wings. They crossed a small bridge. Below, a river moved slowly, like it wasn't in a hurry to reach the sea. Sophie looked at the water. When my mom died, I didn't cry right away. I just started walking. Every day, new city, new hotel, new cafe. I thought I was healing. But maybe I was just hiding. Luca didn't say anything. He just kept walking beside her. Now here, I finally feel like I've stopped running. Even for a little while. That's enough sometimes. One still moment. They reached a park. Children played on swings. An old couple sat on a bench, sharing a bag of roasted chestnuts. Sophie sat on the grass and Luca followed. Do you believe in fate? She asked. Not really. But I believe in timing. Me too. She looked at him. So what's the deal with Italian coffee anyway? Why is it so serious here? Because it's honest. You can't fake a good espresso. You can't rush it. And you can't drink it while walking. So it's like a mirror. Exactly. They sat quietly watching clouds move across the sky. The kind of clouds that don't promise rain, just decoration. After a while, Luca stood up and reached out a hand. Let's get gelato. Now you're speaking my language. They walked through the narrow streets until they reached a small gelato shop. The man behind the counter smiled at Luca. 2 spoons. Luca said. Always 2. The man answered. They sat on a bench outside, sharing a cup of lemon and raspberry gelato. The cold bite mixed with warm sunlight made everything feel balanced. Sophie took a spoonful and smiled. You know, if I had to pick a place to start over, this town might be it. Really? Yeah. It's not big, not loud, but it feels alive. Luca looked at her. You know you don't have to keep leaving. You can just stay. For a while. She looked at him, then at the street in front of them. Maybe I will. I haven't felt this safe in a long time. They finished the gelato slowly, like everything else in this story.